Tonight is WWE Elimination Chamber, the second to last stop on the road to WrestleMania, and WWE has barely broken a sweat to put any effort whatsoever into this card. I will put more effort into this preview for the show than WWE will put effort into the actual show itself. The talent will knock it out of the park, I'm sure. They usually do. But before I get into that, Wrestle Rumble is hosting an Elimination Chamber Pick'em contest. First place winner receives $1,000 cold hard cash. Second and third place winners each receive $100. All you have to do is correctly answer a series of prop questions, such as which wrestler will take the pin or the submission in the United States title match? Who will be the first man eliminated in either of the Elimination Chamber matches? Will there be a Money in the Bank cash-in? So that gives you a sense of the kind of questions that you'll have to answer. Visit WrestleRumble.com right now to buy an entry or 5. One entry is $10, or you can buy up to 5 entries for $30 and a chance to win $1,000. That's WrestleRumble.com. The winners will be announced tomorrow, the day after the pay-per-view. So this pay-per-view had almost no undercard after Monday night. And still, even now, even today, has a very thin undercard. Just to give you a sense, I was curious. 1 year ago, at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, the final pay-per-view before the COVID era began, they had 8 matches in total, including the kickoff. Andrade and Aleister Black were on the card, just to show you how much of a difference a year can make. Right now they have 5 matches at this moment, in part because the Raw Women's title match between Asuka and Lacey Evans is now off because Lacey is pregnant. Oddly, they're still advertising the match, so it has not technically been called off yet, but she is legitimately pregnant. She is not wrestling on the show tonight, so that match is not happening. On Monday, Charlotte and Asuka took on Lacey and Peyton Royce. And Lacey Evans never entered the ring. She stood on the ring apron, never tagged in, never got physical. After a few minutes, rather than have to get into the ring with Charlotte, who wanted to get her hands on her, she decided, no, you're not going to get your hands on me. She hopped off the apron, and she told Charlotte, the reason you're not going to put your hands on me is because I'm pregnant. So I guess that was a no contest, the match. I mean, as if it even really matters. But that's how the match ended. Ric Flair had this dumbfounded look on his face. He looked very confused. He said, really? And when Lacey said yes, he began celebrating and wooing. And he said, just call me daddy. Charlotte looked like she wanted to vomit. I had the same look on my face. The implication, I guess, being that the strictly professional working relationship between Flair and Evans was not so professional after all, and Lacey took a ride on Space Mountain. If Space Mountain was falling apart and in need of repairs, but the ride still works. She took a ride on Space Mountain. The reason for all of this is that Lacey is legitimately pregnant with her second child. They only learned of this on Monday a few hours before Raw went on the air, and so they had to rewrite things to incorporate this into the show. If this were going to be the end of the storyline, I would say this is great news. This is fantastic news. But I have a feeling they're going to keep this story going for a while until she can't be on TV anymore. So we may not be done with this just yet. There may be more of this to come. It also means the match with Asuka is off. No replacement has been announced yet. If they really wanted to, I suppose, they could just slot Peyton Royce or somebody in there if they wanted to get Asuka a match on the card. But look, we all know it is only a matter of time before Charlotte Flair gets her title shot. Now, to do it this weekend would be too soon. Now, that would be completely ridiculous. But you know, whether it's Fastlane or WrestleMania, you know it's coming. For sure. Without a doubt. On one of those shows, if not both, Charlotte will be challenging for the championship. So you may as well just keep Asuka off the show. Otherwise, it's just doing a match for the sake of doing a match. Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler had a busy week. They appeared on Raw Monday night, NXT Wednesday night, SmackDown Friday night, and now the Chamber here on Sunday. as WWE has added a women's tag team title match with Jackson Baszler defending against Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. Now on Raw, Lana and Naomi, they already have a tag team title shot in their back pocket. On NXT, Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez are challenging for the tag team titles on the March 3rd episode of NXT. But Sasha and Bianca, they're going to get the first shot. I want them to win. I want them to win just so that we can get Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, even just for one night, back in NXT. And we can get a match with Sasha and Bianca against Kai and Gonzalez. And they can drop the titles there to set up their WrestleMania match. So that is the result that I want. That is not the result that I believe we are going to get. You've got Carmella's manservant, Reginald, who is back in the ring again with the ladies on TV this week. Reginald has taken a liking to Sasha Banks. He's hanging around her. He's helping her out. He seems infatuated with her. He tagged with her and Bianca on Friday against Jax, Baszler, and Bayley, and they won. The babyfaces won. Carmella was not happy about his involvement and warned him that something bad is going to happen if this happens again. Now, had they not done that segment with Reginald and Carmella later in the show, I would have been sitting here right now telling you that I think the whole thing is a setup. And I think that Reginald is going to play a role in Sasha and Bianca losing in their match on the pay-per-view tonight. Either that or there's some kind of miscommunication spot between Sasha and Bianca, and that's, why they lose the match. And then that begins the setup for a match between them at WrestleMania, officially, because Bianca has not yet made her choice. Neither has Edge, the most indecisive person in the world. Edge has still not made his decision on what he wants to do. I wonder if he agonizes over other important life decisions, whether to buy a house or a car, what new, his computer crashes, he has to buy a new computer. I could just picture this guy, he's got to evaluate all of his options. 6 months later, he still hasn't made a decision. We all know who Bianca is going to choose. We all know who Bianca should choose. The only correct answer is Sasha Banks. And I would love a Sasha Banks heel turn because she's just such a good heel. She's a much better heel than, I think, a babyface. I don't know if it happens this soon. But unfortunately, I don't think they're going to go over here. I don't think we're going to get that match in NXT. I'm picking Nia and Shayna to retain. There is, as I am recording this at this moment, they could add something later on today, but there is no Intercontinental title match scheduled for the pay-per-view. There is a U.S. title match, but on Smackdown Friday night, Apollo Crews officially turned heel. After his loss to Shinsuke Nakamura, he attacked Nakamura. He attacked Big E, which is a little weird because they ran the same exact angle on NXT 2 nights earlier, where Isaiah Swerve Scott, he's been on a bit of a losing streak. He lost to Leon Ruff. He snapped and attacked him after the match. Clearly, there's no communication between the two writing teams. So they basically did the same thing here, only with Apollo Crews. They've been building to this moment. It just so happened, I guess these two things happened in the same week. So he snapped, and he attacked Nakamura. And he attacked Big E, who was at ringside for the match. Big E was having some dinner. He was soaking his feet in a foot bath. He was lounging out during this match. And then he got serious when he saw what Crews was doing. Crews had picked up the ring steps, and Big E got in his face and told him to put the steps down and leave, get out of here. Yeah, the whole story here is that Big E has beaten Apollo 3 times already. He is not giving him another Intercontinental title match because he doesn't feel he deserves one. And so Crews finally snapped. And Crews ended up attacking Big E with the ring steps as well, to the point that Big E had to be stretchered out of the building. And WWE announced some kind of ridiculous injury. You know what WWE does. I wish I had written it down. They usually announce these just ridiculous injuries. They use the most complicated medical terminology they can. So he suffered some kind of chest injury. Should have just called it a chest injury. So I don't expect him to be, well, you know what? This is WWE in 2021. He could very well be back on TV this Friday. He probably will be. Probably will be back on TV this Friday. But I think we're headed for a triple threat, is what we're headed for initially, for the Intercontinental title. Big E, Apollo Crews, and Shinsuke Nakamura, who has won a few matches now on TV, and certainly when he had his shot against Big E a few weeks ago, Apollo screwed him. So Nakamura can make the case for deserving a shot at the championship way more than Apollo Crews can. But I think we're headed for a triple threat either on television in the next few weeks on SmackDown, or if they think they can wait, another 4 weeks, they could do it at Fastlane, which is I think on the 21st next month. But the title match at WrestleMania is going to be Big E against Apollo Crews one-on-one for the Intercontinental Championship. I believe it'll be one-on-one. They could do the triple threat to get Nakamura on the show, I suppose. But I think the real issue here is Big E and Apollo. So that really should be the WrestleMania match. The trash talking between Big E and Apollo on TV the last few weeks has really been on point. It's been really, really good. I've liked that aspect of it. I love that it was really Paul Heyman on Talking Smack several weeks ago who really instigated this whole attitude change in Apollo Crews. No more smiling babyface. This is the heel turn that his character desperately needed. I think they should put the title on him and keep the program going at least through WrestleMania. Maybe he wins it at WrestleMania. But I think if you're going to really give this guy a serious push as a heel, I do think you need to change the title and then have Big E chase for it. But again, there is no Intercontinental title match on this show. We do have Bobby Lashley defending the United States Championship in a triple threat against Keith Lee and Matt Riddle. Now, Keith Lee is supposedly, according to some reports, he is questionable for this match. I don't know why. Keith Lee was off television for probably about 3 weeks. And during that time, Mia Yim, who he lives with and he just proposed to about a week ago, she tested positive for COVID. I don't know if he ever did, but he came back. He came back to TV, and then he disappeared again. So I don't know what's going on with Keith Lee. Now, there are other reports about Keith Lee, and I want to caution people when it comes to this. There are reports about Keith Lee and how Vince McMahon views him. You might see that on some wrestling news websites. Just consider the source and be mindful of where you get some of this information from. There is some information that even I will not share here on this podcast because I might think that it's bullshit, or I may not trust the source and I'm waiting for someone more reputable to report the same thing. I am taking a wait-and-see approach on that. This report does not come from any source that I trust, so I am not going to bother commenting on it beyond that until I see someone more reputable backing it up. Now, we can use our 2 functioning eyeballs to see the way that Keith Lee has been booked on TV since being called up from NXT, and can pretty much tell, between that and the stuff with him being sent to the big guy classes at the Performance Center, Vince McMahon is probably not too enamored with Keith Lee. But beyond that, we just don't know. We're going to get a pretty good sense, though, I think, of what he thinks of Keith Lee as we get closer to WrestleMania, because there is one WrestleMania match to me that makes the most sense right now for Keith Lee. And if he is not slotted in that match, if Keith Lee doesn't even have a prominent match at WrestleMania, then I think that speaks volumes about what Vince McMahon really thinks about him. But we're not there yet. We're not there yet. There's still time to see exactly what plans they may have for him. But Lashley has been totally dominant on television now for months. He has been booked as strongly as any champion in this company not named Roman Reigns. And I thought, about Riddle taking the title maybe by pinning Keith Lee, so that way Lashley is sort of protected from having to take the pin. And then Riddle finally wins one after he's been, every week, he's ragdolled on TV, he's left for dead. Lashley puts him in the hurt lock and just throws him around like a sack of crap. It's been happening now for weeks. But you know what? Sometimes you cannot protect everybody. You can't protect everybody on the roster all at the same time. Sometimes you have that one person in a program that you want to protect and you want to keep strong. And that person is not Matt Riddle. That person is Bobby Lashley. Now, I also think that they could set up a singles defense, and this is where I was going with Keith Lee. They could set up a singles defense for Lashley at WrestleMania if he's not going after the WWE title, which I think is still a possibility. They could set up a match with Lashley defending the US title one-on-one against Keith Lee. And Lee could win the championship at WrestleMania. To do that, Lashley has to retain here in this match. And I predict that he does. Probably by submitting Matt Riddle again, because why the fuck not? He's been doing it every week on TV. What's another one? What's another week of Matt Riddle submitting to the Hurt Lock? Now in the Smackdown Elimination Chamber match, we've got two of them on this show. The first chamber is the Smackdown one. I don't know what the order is going to be, but we'll take on Smackdown first. It's Kevin Owens, Jey Uso, Daniel Bryan, Cesaro, Sami Zayn, and King Corbin, with the winner going on to challenge Roman Reigns for the Universal title later on in the show. I don't know if they're going to open the show with the Smackdown Chamber, and whoever wins is going to wrestle Roman in the main event. They may do the Smackdown Chamber, and then Roman and Paul Heyman come right on out. They don't give the winner any chance to rest, and they go right into the championship match. I don't know what the order of the matches is going to be. They could go either way with it. This is a match that is tailor-made for a babyface win, which would eliminate half the participants in there. Jey Uso is not winning this match. Sami Zayn is not winning this match. Baron Corbin better not even think of Baron Corbin winning this match. It's just the thought of Baron Corbin back in the ring with Roman Reigns just gives me nightmares again about dog food. So let's take those three guys and put them on the side. That leaves us with Kevin Owens, who has had multiple chances now and failed every single time to beat Roman Reigns and win the Universal title. I think Kevin Owens is probably the second likeliest person, the second likeliest name to win. And I could see him and Sami Zayn being the first two to open the match. But I don't think he's winning. Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan will make a great opponent for Roman Reigns. But not tonight. That should not be an unannounced match on this show that is just sort of thrown on there. It is a WrestleMania-worthy match, even though the Mania match is going to be Edge against Roman Reigns. That became even more apparent on Friday night, but I've been telling you this for weeks. Ever since I did my Royal Rumble predictions. I don't know why you have to bother listening to anybody else. I've been telling you Edge and Reigns since before the Rumble. But Daniel Bryan could absolutely win this chamber match. It is very possible. I don't think he does. I believe that honor is going to go to Cesaro, who has been getting a mini push on TV since reportedly signing a new contract. Things seem to kind of coincide with him signing a new deal with the company. And since Daniel Bryan is on the creative team now, Cesaro has been one of his pet projects. But this push should at least earn him one championship match. I think Cesaro is going to be the feel-good story of this Elimination Chamber. I think he wins, and I think he goes on to challenge Roman Reigns later on in the show. And in that match, for the Universal Championship, Cesaro will fall to Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is going to retain. Now, on SmackDown Friday night, Seth Rollins, I don't know what the fuck he was wearing, but Seth Rollins showed up wearing this wacky suit. He cut a promo in the ring. He's not calling himself the Messiah, but basically he's still doing the same gimmick. It is a fucking bore. Seth Rollins is very talented, but there are very few people on the WWE roster right now, Raw or SmackDown, who bore me as much as Seth Rollins does when he comes out for a promo. So I hope that in the weeks to come, he shakes things up a little bit as far as this character is concerned. But Seth Rollins was out there on TV. He was very upset. He was very upset at the way that Cesaro had upstaged him when he made his big return the week before on TV. Remember, all the wrestlers were surrounding the ring, and as Rollins was talking about how he's here to save the SmackDown roster, all the SmackDown talent turned their back on him and walked to the locker room. Cesaro was the last one out there, And then in the end, he did the same thing. He kind of shook his head. He went to go walk off. Rollins chop blocked him, went after his knee, attacked him from behind. And Rollins singled him out here in this promo, called him a loser. I think that is a pretty good indication that if Cesaro were to win the Chamber and go on to challenge for the title, Seth Rollins probably going to get involved in some way. Seth Rollins probably going to give the assist to his old Shield buddy and cost Cesaro the win. That would then set up a match between Cesaro and Seth Rollins, maybe at Fastlane. And then we get Rollins and Daniel Bryan one-on-one at WrestleMania. Although I wouldn't mind a triple threat with those three. But I think Rollins-Bryan is the WrestleMania direction. If they do Rollins and Cesaro, that's probably the Fastlane match. At the very end of the show on Friday night, Roman speared Edge. Edge was hanging around again. He was talking to all the different participants in the Chamber. Oh, if you win. He's talking to Kevin Owens. He's talking to Corbin and Bryan. Teasing all of these potential matches, should he choose to go after the WWE title at WrestleMania. So the very last shot of the show on Friday night of this final go-home show was Roman Reigns delivering a spear to Edge. There is no way that match at WrestleMania is anything other than Edge challenging Roman Reigns. And if we get Jey Uso back in the ring in the next few weeks, I have not heard his name mentioned one time. But if he were to come back, if he were to show up in these next few weeks, I still think that on the path to building to Edge and Roman at WrestleMania, you could get a fun tag team match, a pretty big tag team match at Fastlane between the Usos and Edge and Christian, because I'm sure Christian has not seen his last match either. We have not seen the last of Christian in the ring. The only question is, when is he going to come back? And I think that would be the match. Maybe it's not Fastlane, but that would be the match for him to come back to. An Edge and Christian in-ring reunion. Now that they're both cleared, it's a no-brainer. Of course it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And that's a match that they have to do. Now in the Raw Elimination Chamber match, we have Drew McIntyre defending his WWE Championship against Sheamus, AJ Styles, Randy Orton, Jeff Hardy, and not The Miz. On Monday night, Miz hosted a Miz TV segment with Drew McIntyre where McIntyre gave him a headbutt. Miz then recovered. He said, look, he's not risking injury inside the chamber because he already has a guaranteed title opportunity with the briefcase. And he removed himself from the Elimination Chamber match. And he put both the WWE and the Universal Champion on notice. Nobody is safe, said the man who got punked out by Bad Bunny. Nobody is safe. Speaking of the Bunny, he pinned Tozawa on Raw Monday night to win the 24/7 title. And he also was the musical guest on SNL this weekend, so I guess to them it's great exposure. They have this guy running around with their joke belt. I don't think it's going to bring in a single new fan when they find out that Bad Bunny is the 24/7 champion, but in their eyes, putting the title on Rob Gronkowski and all of these different athletes and celebrities, it's a big coup. They get footage of them wearing the 24/7 title. If there's one thing that WWE loves more than distraction roll-ups, they love their celebrities. Boy, do they love their celebrities. So, with The Miz out of the chamber, he lobbied Adam Pearce to allow John Morrison to replace him. Kofi Kingston was also lobbying for the spot, given that he is a former WWE champion. Like everybody else inside the chamber, Morrison is not. So Pearce made a match between Miz and Kofi, where if Miz wins, Morrison would be in, but if Kofi won, then Kofi would get the spot. Last week, you remember here on the podcast, I pointed out that it would have made a lot more sense to just do qualifying matches on TV, which they did on Friday. They did that on Smackdown. They did not do that on Raw. They came up with this dumb rule that we're just going to take former WWE champions and just put them all in the match. But I made it a point to mention that they should have had qualifying matches and have Mustafa Ali screw Kofi Kingston out of a spot in the chamber to play off of what happened to Ali 2 years ago when he got hurt by Randy Orton in that match on Smackdown. And Kofi ended up taking his spot. He didn't win the chamber, but he rode this momentum, the whole Kofi Mania thing. He rode it all the way to WrestleMania and all the way to the WWE title. A 6-month reign as WWE champion. Here, Kofi pinned The Miz, and so Kofi Kingston is now inside the chamber. And now things are set up perfectly for Ali to attack Kofi and steal his spot in the chamber, which is what I think is going to end up happening. Now, Braun Strowman, who was out with a blood infection, he was on IV fluids, it was a little scary. Sounded like a pretty scary story. So it's good to see that he's okay. He was back on Raw Monday night in a backstage segment. He was very upset with Adam Pearce about not being in the chamber match. And Pearce told him, well, you know, technically you are not a former WWE champion. You were the Universal Champion. That is a different title. You hear that, Goldberg? Don't get any ideas. And when Pearce said, look, I'm just the messenger, Braun told him, well, I want you to deliver a message to Shane McMahon. So now we know why they trotted out Shane McMahon for that announcement a few weeks ago, and then he just up and left the building. It looks like they may have plans to do something with him and Braun Strowman at WrestleMania. So I guess Shane is probably, jumping off the pirate ship this year? There's a pirate ship, right? I think in the back of Raymond James Stadium. How ridiculous is it that they don't have Kairi Sane anymore? I mean, they do. Technically, they have her under contract. I saw the story where she was asking permission to wrestle or show up at the Stardom show, and WWE did not give her permission because they still have her under contract. She's over in Japan, but she's more of an ambassador role now for the company. But I mean, she's the Pirate Princess, and yet they're going to be at Raymond James Stadium, and now they have no Kairi Sane. It just doesn't seem right. But yeah, it seems pretty obvious that there's going to be something going on with Shane and Braun. I mean, maybe it's not a match. Maybe it's part of an angle that's going to get Braun into an even higher profile position on the show. But it sure does seem like Shane is going to be taking a big bump at WrestleMania this year. Now on Raw, they did a gauntlet match to determine who would enter the chamber last on Sunday. It opened with AJ Styles and Kofi Kingston. Omos, AJ's bodyguard, he chokeslammed poor Xavier Woods into the lava that apparently exists on the other side of the barricade, and we never saw Xavier again. And then Omos was ejected from ringside. Styles then eliminated Kofi with a phenomenal forearm. McIntyre was out next, and he eliminated Styles with the Claymore kick. Jeff Hardy was next. Drew got his knees up on the Swanton Bomb, and the Claymore kick finished him off. And that kept Drew in the gauntlet long enough to get to Randy Orton. Finally, a fresh match that we've never seen before. Drew McIntyre against Randy Orton. Went about a minute before Alexa Bliss's face appeared on all of the Thunderdome screens, and we heard her laughing. She was laughing maniacally. And this distracted Randy Orton long enough for him to be counted out. And that brought out Sheamus as the final entrant in the gauntlet. Sheamus came out from the crowd, I guess. Drew was waiting for him. Sheamus attacked him from behind, laid him out. The referee is checking on him, asking him, can you continue? Do you want to continue? And Drew said, yes, I'm fine. McIntyre missed the Claymore kick, Sheamus hit the Brogue kick, and he pinned the WWE Champion. And I'll say this, at least they did a better job this week of filling the third hour of Raw, which is just an absolute death spot. It's a fucking death trap every week. But they did a better job at least of filling the third hour because of the Gauntlet. Gauntlet went almost an hour. Went a few minutes short of an hour. Sheamus will enter the chamber last tonight. He got one over on his former friend. I don't think the same thing is going to happen on the pay-per-view. I think the odds are stacked against Drew McIntyre, but I think he overcomes it. And I predict that Drew McIntyre retains the WWE title. that would still leave the field wide open for Drew at WrestleMania as far as potential opponents. You know, I saw WrestleVotes tweeted that WWE has plans in place for the Universal title at WrestleMania, and they have plans in place for Bad Bunny at WrestleMania, but not the WWE title. That is still up in the air. That is still in a state of flux at this point. And I just thought, it's nice to know that the Rabbit has his WrestleMania plans locked in, but not the WWE champion on their biggest show of the year. And I said that on Twitter, and a lot of people got very upset. Oh, the Bad Bunny fans. They were very upset, as if I had said something that offended the soul of the Rabbit. Then I have to hear from all the Bunny bots telling me, well, Solomonster, he's got 30 million followers on Instagram. He's a big star. Well, since he's such a big star, hey, why not just put him in the ring with Drew McIntyre? Right? Just give him all the titles. He already has one. Just give him all the titles, since he's got millions of views on YouTube, since apparently that's the metric that we're using now. I'll tell you what. Let's have him beat Roman Reigns as well. He can be the one. Nobody else has been able to stop Roman Reigns. Maybe he can be the one to finally beat Roman Reigns. Roman tries to outsmart the Rabbit by leaving a carrot in the middle of the ring. And when the bunny goes to eat the carrot, he goes to spear him, but the bunny is wearing a metal plate under his shirt, and Roman knocks himself out. And the bunny pins him and wins the Universal title. And then Bow Wow runs out. He runs down to the ring, since now apparently he's training with Rikishi. He wants to be a WWE superstar. He's jaw-jacking on social media with all the wrestlers. Let's have Bow Wow run in, and he attacks the bunny. And he sets up a match at the next pay-per-view for the title. Then WWE can get 10 million viewers for Monday Night Raw. And we've got our new boom period. It's not about Bad Bunny. That wasn't the point of my tweet. He'll have his match, most likely, him and Damian Priest, against The Miz and Morrison. That tag match, it's probably a done deal already for WrestleMania. And you know what? I don't care about Miz and Morrison. I don't care about Bad Bunny, but good for Damian Priest. Good for Damian Priest, if that's the match. I hope it helps him. I hope it helps establish him as a name on the Monday Night Raw roster. My issue is with all of these reports. And look, that's all they are right now. Maybe WWE has some great secret plan for what they want to do with Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania. But my issue is with these reports. We've been hearing it for weeks. It's not just one tweet from an account. We've been hearing this for weeks. The WrestleMania card, it's incomplete. WWE hasn't figured out yet what they want to do with Drew McIntyre. And Drew McIntyre is the WWE champion. Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre should have been the first two people who had their plans locked in for WrestleMania. You always take care of your champions. That was my issue. That remains my issue. I don't care about any of this other stuff. It's all nonsense. I don't care who these celebrities are. I don't care how many fucking followers they have. I don't give a shit. My concern is not them. They're there to have fun. My issue is with the champions going into what is supposedly the biggest show of the year. You should always take care of your champions and always know, around this time, have a pretty good sense of what you're going to do with them. And I think they do with Roman. Doesn't seem that way with Drew. Sheamus should be Drew McIntyre's opponent for WrestleMania. If we're being perfectly honest here, I don't care how big of a star you think Sheamus is or isn't. That is the story they have been building on television for months now, from the moment they started acknowledging their friendship, their very real friendship on television. It was kind of unique because you had Drew as a babyface. Sheamus was coming off a run as a heel on Smackdown. He had feuded with Jeff Hardy. He had feuded with Big E. It's not very often that you see your top babyface being all chummy on television, on camera, with a heel. But I like that they incorporated their real-life friendship on television into the storyline, and you knew where it was going to go. You knew at some point Sheamus was going to turn on Drew. It was only a matter of time. And then when they finally did it, right after the Rumble, it was the fucking laziest possible way they could have done it. But they did it. That wasn't a surprise. If we're being totally honest, that should be the match. I know it's not as sexy as having a big, like a big legend in there or someone like that. They couldn't get John Cena. I had floated that idea. Sheamus should be the opponent. He is the one that makes the most sense. But if Drew wins here, if Drew wins the chamber match as I think he is going to, and let's say they do a singles match with these two at Fastlane, then I don't see them doing it again at WrestleMania. So then we look elsewhere. The way that Bobby Lashley has been booked just has to put him in the mix, at least in consideration. Why else have they been booking this guy so strong? When was the last time they booked a mid-card title, a mid-card champion as strong as they have Bobby Lashley? So I think his name has to be in the mix if he isn't defending the championship against somebody else like a Keith Lee, which I think he probably is going to. So who else? AJ Styles. AJ Styles has no obvious opponent for WrestleMania, which is why I had said that I think he might finally get the match he's always wanted against Triple H. If Triple H wants to be on the WrestleMania card this year, that's his opponent. I guess the ball's in his court. If Triple H wants to have a match, AJ Styles is going to be his opponent. But if not, AJ is still available. And if they don't do Braun Strowman against Shane McMahon, Braun Strowman being kept out of the chamber could be a way to keep him away from Drew so that you can save it for a singles match at WrestleMania. Because remember, it was likely going to be, coming out of Survivor Series, the reports, the belief, is that it was going to be Braun Strowman at TLC against Drew. And Braun got hurt. And so AJ got the spot instead. I think Drew against Braun for the title at WrestleMania sucks. I don't want to see that match. WrestleMania title match? No thank you. So I'm hoping that's not what this is. But to me, that's what the WWE title picture looks like at this point. Who am I missing? What other names are out there who could be potential opponents for Drew that I'm not mentioning here? That seems to be the landscape at this point. Sheamus is really the one who makes the most sense. Sheamus or Lashley. One thing I can tell you is that I'm going to be live on YouTube as soon as the pay-per-view is over, talking all about it and going off on it if they try anything stupid. So that's always fun. So join me live. We always have a good time on the YouTube streams.